All right, 1 minute to go before the first race on December 15. And Blue Jay's doing something smart. Instead of sailing down to the pin end, which is open, they are coasting until they're threatened. Because there's no reason to sail down until they get threatened. Now 14 is threatening them, but 14 just put helm down, which means that threat is going away. So, Blue Jay's going back into the pack? Oh no, they're just diving down to make sure they're below the line. Okay, they're still okay. And they've got plenty of runway, so they should get further going and get further away from 14. They're a little close to 14. A lot of boats are way late. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boats that are late. Although 24 might not be late. That might be okay. But 12's got to keep... No, 12, get away from 14. And there's too much serpentine here. Yes, you forced 14 over, but now you're going over yourself. Watch out, these boats have to return around us. 12, it's 14, 12, and 16. Oh. Okay, 16 will be the first one to get back. 14 had to know they were over. Why would they wait until they hear their number when the line was behind them when the gun went off?
16 clear.
And 12 forced 14 over. 12 could have just sailed for the pin and made a perfect start, but they were too focused on being glued to number 14. 14's main is stalled right now, so they made that turn with the main boned in. And they should have been gently trimming through the turn rather than trimming before the turn.
Way too far back.
So 13 ends up taking the start. Sorry, that's 23, not 13. That's Rick Guardia steering Sorcerer, just tacking now that they're free to tack. Because 18 has tacked away, which is John Santamaria. John made a good start. And leftmost, the water looks glassy, but they're actually somewhat advanced. That's Andrew Baker on Eliza, last week's winner. Oh yeah, the fleet's back here. I think Eliza's looking good. Because the 3 boats are over early have just cleared, and they're not far behind some of the boats that started late. So Eliza's all by her lonesome over here, but they're lifted, and which is why they're not tacking to cover the fleet. The boats that did tack, Sorcerer, boy, they seem to be in a big header. And unless the breeze fills in right, I can't imagine sailing that low on port is a good move. Look at 17's angle coming out on starboard. They were a little bit late for the start, but that's John Power now going pretty well. Any sort of lefty, look for Power to make a comeback here. They've just dipped 2 boats in a header. Eliza has finally tacked, and her angle is a little bit better than the other boats. The problem is velocity. Also, Sal Rosen is going left, waiting for something to come back on. But the angle on Eliza looks okay right now. And here is John Power on 17. They've been headed a tiny bit with everyone allured. They're moving okay. They may have a little too much leeward heel, but it's certainly better than standing up straight. Oh, did Eliza not make it across? Oh, I thought they were going to make that. Wow. Okay, the breeze is straightened out a little bit coming down the course, and as such, Sorcerer is lifted a little bit, boat 23. I wonder if, I can't tell from here, I wonder if their main leech is too tight. Let me see if I can. No, I'm too far away to tell, in wrong angle. Maybe fine. In fact, I think it is okay. I feel like they could be sailing a degree higher, though, but then again, they're looking at the telltales on the jib. I'm not.
God might get saved.
The water is glass, but that doesn't mean there's no wind. There's just enough pollutants in the water to make it appear glassy in winds of 3 or less. And we do have approximately 3 knots of wind right now. Meanwhile, back on the left side of the course, John Powers made it across both boats, looking at a tiny gust coming off of the skyscrapers, and will tack to windward of Eliza and warp drive. Okay, here's the group that went right, led by 23, that's Rick Guardia and Sorcerer. They're now headed on starboard, whereas they were headed on port coming over here. Meanwhile, the boats that went left got their lefty, And all three of them appear to be crossing by a good margin. Although Eliza is falling behind of those three. The boat closest to us, I believe is, I can't tell. 26, yeah, that's Sol Rosen on warp drive. They are closest to the middle of the course, and so they may be in the best position, along with Power, who's up on their weathers inside. 24 is doing okay, but John Dexter in Stiletto is going to tack again, because he's now run into that header that the guys on the left are lifted on port with. Little change here. 26 fell out of the lift a little bit, unlike John Power, who's just remained lifted and will lead at the weather mark. Possibly followed by Eliza, who got bad air from Power, but got so lifted that now she's somewhat in the clear. Although these guys could still be second. And the boats that are going right are probably going to settle for 4, 5, 6, around there. My mistake, that's Eliza in first, in 11, that will tack and round soon, followed by John Power. I thought Power had crossed them and tacked ahead of them, but no, it is last week's winner, Andrew Baker, who will round first, followed by John Power. And after that, we think it'll be Warp Drive, who generally went left this race, even though they're pretty far out on the right ley line at the moment. There's a view we rarely get, pre-feeding the spinnaker from the leeward side. They could use more weight to leeward. The skipper just called for it, and there is more weight to leeward, as the skipper is more concerned about making Mark II, while the crew is busy readying the spinnaker to get to the gate. The spinnaker's going up just as the keel is passing the mark. A little wrap in the chute, but that shouldn't take too long to get out. Nice. Oh, a little break in the chute, but it's going now. There they go. Okay. Wow, Power overstood here, but there is some current. Surprisingly, tide's coming up, and there hasn't rained in 2 weeks, but there's still current going out. Go figure. Okay, we got Fred Baker doing tactics on this boat. They too have a good spinnaker set. It should fill the moment the jib comes down. And it does. And there's a little breeze coming in as well. So these guys barely made the first mark, and now they are not fooling with the spinnaker because they know they're barely making the offset. Sol Rosen, they've been doing well lately. And there they go. There goes a pre-feed with a guy. They're happy they made that mark. Wow, look how quickly the current spreads the leaders away. So they're happy with third, and they're going to stay third for a while in this current. Now we get the boats that started well but went right in headers. Sorcerer is next with their set. Spinnaker sets are all pretty good today so far among the leaders. So again, as soon as that jib comes down, spinnaker will be free to fill. Sets a tiny bit early on Dexter's boat, except that they have a little money in the bank on this offset, so they can get away with it. Little header on 23. They need to trim the sheet in. They do, and there's the spinnaker almost filled. They still need to trim a little more. They could also get main in a little bit at this point as well, and they do. Not bad. Okay, Jonathan Austin in 6th. A little nervous about making this offset in the current. This is a different team for Austin, a little late on the hoist, but it is going up, and hopefully that jib will be coming down soon so the spinnaker can fill, because Frank McNamara's team already has their spinnaker up and full. Although now they're in a lull. That's a problem. and you can see the leaders continue to get further and further away, going down current on the run. Wow, a gaggle of boats rounding. Some tactical issues for these three boats, all being so close together. What will Jim do? Will he go above them to get the next puff, or just work way low? Trying to figure that out now. And Blue Jay, who was over early, is making a little bit of a comeback here. They've caught two boats that were not over early, as well as ahead of the other boats that were. Well, the breeze has gotten so light that racing class has had to tack to port to try to get around this mark. Now they're forced back to starboard because of Ika. And this might work for Freedom, but we'll see. So far, I think they're clear of both Ika and the mark. However, they still have to make the next mark. So challenge here for the racing class, because it got so light that they couldn't make the first mark on the first try. Now they're aiming at Mark 2, where the current is pulling them down. So they need to aim back up to make it, and they just realized that. It's a pretty picture. You can see Wasabi is pretty far back with a flag spinnaker. They made a little error in trimming. They pulled the pole back too far, and the effect, even though it didn't bluff, it effectively just pulled the chute onto the headstay and didn't lift away from the boat. Meanwhile, these guys had just enough lift in their spinnaker to get it away from the headstay, and they went right over Wasabi. Wasabi corrected the problem a couple times and got going, but they have lost 3 boats in the process. Okay, checking in on the super light air run for the last 3 of the last 4 boats, getting into the mid-fleet pack here and here, and the leaders have already rounded the gate and are starting their last beat to the finish. Quite a spread out race due to the very light air, pretty big shifts, and current pulling the fleet downwind. Now they'll tighten up again on the beat because they're now fighting the current, at least for a little while longer. At some point, they stop letting water out of the rivers and let the tide come back up. So 11, Eliza is in the lead with Andrew Baker, but 17, John Powers, caught up a little bit. Again, they're fighting current coming out of the rivers. 3rd is Saul still, but there's a boat, the boat they're on at 4th. Yeah, Guardia went the other way, so any sort of little shift and pressure, and they're going to win. Yeah, the pressure seems to be left, so Guardia, I don't think it's going to pick off anybody. It looks like the fleet will stay in order. Well, a little righty for Guardia on Sorcerer over there. And these guys have finally tacked, but not on a great angle. They do have a little pressure. We shall see. No comeback for Wasabi. The boats that went way high kept their speed up the whole time. They're coming in hot on port as well. Now the spinnaker on Wasabi is flying nice and far away from the boat. It wasn't earlier when they were pulling the pole back too much. Now they have the pole off already. maybe a little prematurely, because they're having trouble flying it now with the jib. So those were your leaders, but they did not get angle over there. The Sorcerer did. And it looks like they're going to win this race from 4th. And there's the gun for the Sorcerer, coming from 4th to win by, I don't know, a minute. And even second is in switching around. It looks like Power may get second. We'll see. Eliza's tacked. Well, we think this is kind of a late tack for John Power's team on Kai, because well behind them was Eliza. Eliza tacked first on a lift, which makes the pin favored. However, Power has him by a fair amount, so he may still get him for second.